How's it going, boys? Today a rant. I saw a video from Tolarian University, the professor, about Magic the Gathering and the competitive scene and how it's over and how it's not over. And to tell you the truth, frankly, it literally pissed me off. Now, I am personally more of a Rudy kind of guy, but that's because I do not fit the professor's demographic. The professor is a nice dude who is literally the embodiment of everything good about Magic. He is the person that represents the players of Magic who have played the game for tens of years, who have grown up with Magic, who have had a huge stake in Magic from emotional standpoint. He represents all those people. And well, frankly, that's just not me. And well, I watched the video, and it was about the competitive scene. And, well, I understand the guy loves Magic. It most likely has been a huge part of his life growing up and whatnot. But when the opinions are so jaded about Magic, well, I honestly just don't like that. So here's this video. Now, this video will absolutely 100% offend a lot of people who love Magic extremely dearly and only want to think about the best parts of it. Now, it will not offend someone, and this is honestly not aimed to offend people, because I am honestly making this video with the most intent of making people just, enjoy the game more than anything else. Because, well, the competitive scene of Magic is absolute garbage that should not exist. And when people love a game so much, like the professor and whatnot, they make excuses for why the game is failed competitively. Sure, Wizards definitely has a lot to answer for why the game failed. They could have done a million things better. But some of the points that I took away from that competitive video that the professor said are pretty much this: one, that the tournament system, how it was made, was hard to understand and no one really understand it, and the competitive players didn't like it and whatever. I have never heard in my life about any tournament where the competitive people refused to participate because they did not like how the brackets looked, because they thought that it's hard to understand or whatever. If there's a tournament and you're a competitive player, you're most likely in it, no matter how awkwardly it is structured and how much you don't like it. That is just fact. I have never in my life, even once, have heard that people refuse to attend a competitive tournament because the structure of the tournament was bad. That is no excuse for why Magic the Gathering competitive scene failed. The second one was the fact that Wizards did not promote their scene as much as they should have. I have never in my life seen a single ad for the internationals. I have never in my life seen a single ad for the Worlds in League of Legends, even though I know they actually exist. But I have never seen them, and I'm gonna bet that a lot of people have not seen them. But you know what? Those tournaments, some miraculously how, even without huge marketings, still have ginormous audiences all over the globe. And yes, I know some people are going to say it's unfair to compare, the Dota tournament, the big TI, and, the big League of Legends tournament to Magic, but it is fair to compare them. Because all of these tournaments are held by the main owners of the game. They are sanctioned by the people who own the game, who make everything happen. So it is fair to compare that. Magic, if it was a good competitive game, should not even advertise their tournaments, because their tournaments would just get the views. Even minor tournaments, not held exclusively by the big companies like Valve or Riot Games, those tournaments still get a huge amount of viewers. You know why? Because they're good. Case in point, currently Dream League is up for Dota 2. That shit has 100k viewers on average. And that's not the biggest tournament of the year. The International is. And still, 100k people watching Dota is a huge portion of the player base. And Magic also has probably a pretty big player base, but no one cares to watch the tournaments. Ask yourself a question, why do you think that is? The other point that he had, the fact that people do not know what's at stake. People don't need to know what's at stake. It doesn't matter. This is not a movie. In movies, people need to know what's at stake here. In a tournament, people watch tournaments for two reasons. One, they want to see good gameplay. A lot of the people who tune in for tournaments of competitive nature don't even know what teams are playing. They don't know the rosters of the team. All they know is that that's the best and highest quality gameplay that they will get to see, and they watch it because of it. Two, people tune in because they are fans of a certain team or a certain player, so they cheer them on for the games that they are in. Also, that is not excuse, for Magic not having a thriving competitive scene. I can tell you what's the problem at Magic. Magic is not a competitive game. By its nature, I have said this a million times, Magic is 100% never a competitive game. It's a coin flip most of the time. Let me explain to you what is the experience of a player tuning into a competitive Magic the Gathering tournament. Let's assume they know nothing about the game, okay? Let's assume they know absolutely nothing about Magic. They tune in. They don't know what's happening, but it's interesting. There's creatures on the board, there's enchantments, there's maybe a planeswalker's cards in the hand, things are happening. What happens? They listen to the commentators. And what are the commentators saying? Well, Player 1 is in a pretty good position. Player 2 is now pretty defensive. Player 2 needs to draw X cards so he can stabilize the board and win the game. And what happens? Player 2 does not draw the card that he needs to stabilize the game. He loses. Most people, if not from the first time seeing this, are thinking to themselves, so you mean to tell me this is a competitive game, and the commentators are telling me that player 2 lost because he just did not draw a card, which was completely luck-based. You're telling me that that's why he lost the game, and that's a competitive match. Okay, game 2. It's a stalemate. Both players are top decking. Player 1 draws a card. It's a land. He drops the land. Nothing happens. Player 2 draws a card. It's not a land. It's a card that does something, and now the stalemate is over because he's pushing slowly for victory, but he can't win just yet. Player 1 goes yet again. He draws another land. He plays a land. He does nothing. Player 2 goes. He draws something, doesn't matter what it is, he plays it, he has more advantage. He swings, player 1 is forced to block or do whatever, and player 1 has almost no advantage on the board. He has pretty much nothing on the board left, and now he's one turn away from having 0 HP. It's player 1's turn. He draws. And he draws a card that does something. He plays that card, and the commentator says, well, if he drew that card 2 turns ago, that could have actually maybe swung the game in his direction, and he could have won the game. You see? And it's player 2's turn. He just swings and wins the game. Why? Because in a competitive nature game, especially turn-based, it is impossible for a situation to happen like this. It should be absolutely impossible that there is a situation where it's your turn and you do nothing because you did not even have an option to do anything. And that is Magic the Gathering competitive. It's always going to be a luck. The winner is always going to be the guy who gets the better hand. It's going to be the person who gets more optimal lands. But okay, let's go for one more. One more miracle example. It's player one's turn, he plays something. It's player two's turn, he plays something. It's player one's turn again. He does nothing because he does not have a land and he can't play a single card in his hand because he's missing a land. It's player two's turn. Look at that. He has a land, he plays. He gets a critical advantage just because someone missed a land drop. Yeah. Games are literally decided by a land being one turn too late in Magic. And that is zero skill. That is all RNG. Every person who does not have a room temperature IQ at that moment in time is saying, so this game is literally a coin flip. Who gets to win? Depending on their draws, they're gonna win, because there are situations where you call this game competitive, but you are forced to skip a turn because you drew a land and it does literally nothing to improve your board state. And on the other side, there's someone who didn't draw a land and he gets to further his board state. That is not competitive in the slightest. And you can understand why people don't want to watch this. There's nothing to watch there. Like, you're gonna get bored after like 3 matches. You're gonna get bored by 3 matches. And the worst case scenario is, this is actually the worst case scenario. Like, 9 games out of 10 are gonna be garbage and unwatchable. But 1 in 10 games is gonna be fun, interesting, and it's gonna be what everyone wants Magic to be in general. But sadly, it's an outlier, not the actual status quo. It's a game where decisions will matter, where stuff matters. Every turn there's some kind of development. Every turn there's a play happening until the very end. Those games are outliers. And you know what's the worst part about that? Imagine someone who does not know anything about Magic goes and watches a game like that. And they're like, oh my god, this is great. This is crazy. This game looks so fun. Oh, I should try it. They go download it, and what happens? They get fucking land cucked. They lose the game. And they're like, this is nothing what I saw in the tournament. This is garbage. That's it. The best case scenario for the most interesting game is the worst case scenario for the game. Imagine that. If not for Magic, I don't think a situation like that ever occurs. I don't think a situation like that ever occurs. I have used, by the way, this example a couple of times prior, but it's a great example, and this puts perspective into how stupid and uncompetitive Magic is. Let's say you have the top 100 best Dota players, and you have the 100 best League of Legends players, and you have the 100 best Counter-Strike players, or whatever game. Literally, insert whatever game that's actually competitive here, except Magic. And you put these 100 players against 1,000 other players. And it's mirror matches. They have the same heroes, they have the same literal everything. So it's a test of pure skill. I will bet in every single case, in League of Legends, in Dota, in Counter-Strike, in whichever game, from the top 100 competitive players that you picked from this tournament, 60 or 70 will make it to the top 100 out of those 1,100 players. And in the top 100%, I will bet that that 20 out of 20 people are from the top 100 best players you picked. Now imagine you do the same thing in Magic the Gathering. You give them an exact mirror match, and you put the 100 best Magic the Gathering players against 1,000 other people. I would be shocked, honestly, if even 20% of the 20 competitive Magic the Gathering players make it to the top 100. I would be shocked if more than 2 of these 20 got even into the top 20 positions. And And if we're talking about League of Legends, Dota, or whatever other game, if some random dude made it into the top 20 in a tournament like that, they would instantaneously have a deal to go play competitive. In Magic, every single one of those 80 people that made it into the top 100, none of them would be offered the chance to go competitive, because no one would be that stupid. And that is the fundamental fault with Magic. It is not a competitive game. You can screw it as much as you want. You can present it as much as you want and how much you want it. At the end of the day, it's a boring thing to watch, because competitive games are supposed to be about skill and the best players, not a bunch of people who literally decided to fail their lives by trying to be a competitive Magic the Gathering player, where Wizards gives up on them because they understand they view-botted their tournaments when the game came out. They fucking did it. And that's the best thing, honestly, they could have done it. If the game was interesting to watch, because it was in the top positions in Twitch, people would start to watch it. But no one watched it. Like, every time I see the Magic the Gathering stream on it and it has 10k viewers, I'm literally thinking to myself, it must be botted. Because when I enter the chat, it's slower than my chat. And I average 400 viewers usually. My 400 viewer YouTube live stream chat is more active than a 10k chat. That's just not normal. That is not right. And a lot of people know this. A lot of people understand this. Thankfully, there's not a lot of people, honestly, who think and are, all in on the fact that Magic should be a competitive game. Magic is 100% a part of gaming history. It will always have a place in the annals of time when it comes to the history of gaming. It was the first card game. It was the card game. But the fact that it was the best card game for a very long time does not mean that it currently can compete with other card games, especially competitive when it comes down to being a competitive card game or a competitive game at all. Anything that has this much random where you can literally skip a turn because you just drew a land and you can't do anything does not deserve to be a competitive game in the first place. And in Magic, there is absolutely no way to circumvent that. Unless the game gets severe changes, it's not happening. The competitive scene will never be big, and Wizards will never care about the competitive scene. And also, the professor mentioned that paper is the future of Magic. Paper is not the future of fucking Magic. Paper will never be the future of Magic. I honestly think that Arena is already 2 or 3 or maybe even 4 times outperforming paper Magic printouts revenue-wise. I would not be surprised. And if it's not already, and if that's too high of an estimate, I can already tell you that 100% it is outperforming paper Magic in some metrics of sales and potential. There is no way. The only reason paper Magic costs $100 a box is the simple reason that they are the ones that throttle their own supply. If they gave free access to everyone who wanted the boxes and there would not be any competition to buy the boxes would cost almost dirt fucking nothing. And that's also a problem that Wizards is facing. That their price is artificial because Wizards keeps it artificial. Yeah, I guess that's pretty much it though. If you're playing Magic to be competitive, I think you're wasting your time. Play Magic for fun. Play Magic because making decks in Magic is interesting. Play Magic because it has cool, big, fancy combos that other games do not offer for you. Play it for fun. If you think that Magic is a competitive game, you are 100% delusional. And if you think that the future of Magic is in paper, that's also not true. That will never be true. If the future of anything was in paper, other games would have already taken full advantage of that. Other games would have 100% taken already full advantage of that. Now, admittedly, you can't say that there's Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh! Where, paper means a lot, but, still. Different circumstances for different things. If paper was truly the future, then every game ever would print out something on paper. That's just the reality of it. It can't be that like 99.999% of companies in the world are too dumb to recognize that paper is the future of anything. Because if paper is the future of anything, you can print anything on that shit. It doesn't matter if it's magic or whatever. You can print it, and if paper is truly the future, then it's gonna fucking sell. But it doesn't. So yeah. Is that it though? Let me think. I'm not sure. Not sure at all. Is this it? I don't know. Did I miss anything? Oh yeah, a little. I guess I can talk a little bit about the potential future of Magic the Gathering competitive scene. There's definitely a future. People will hold their own tournaments 100%. Just because Wizards abandons it, it doesn't mean that it's gonna be gone. It doesn't matter what it is. People always will compete who's the best at it. Like, it's always gonna happen. Be it rock throwing, spear throwing, drinking, or whatever. People are always going to compete and want to see who's the best at it. And there's always going to be a small minority of people who want to see who is the best at it while not participating directly themselves. So there is a future, obviously, for competitive Magic. But Wizards understands that it is not lucrative and it's garbage. So they are pretty much abandoning it. Admittedly, I will say this. While I do not play paper Magic, and I have no longevity history with Magic, it has never been a huge part of my life or whatever, I have watched videos of Commander. I have no fucking clue what they're, by the way, doing. I have absolutely not the slightest clue what's happening. Usually they're spinning some kind of fidget or whatever, then placing some kind of red creature commander card down, and then they shake hands because it's an infinity win condition or something like that. I have no idea what's happening, but it is entertaining. But it will never work in Arena. And as long as it doesn't work in Arena, Wizards will not give two shits about it. Because imagine if Commander came to Arena. Imagine viewing that. First of all, there is this big, huge problem. Commander is 1 versus 1 versus 1 versus 1. The moment a tournament of that nature happens, and 4 people are duking it out all against each other, the moment some guy does one mistake that, the vast, all-knowing community of Magic the Gathering competitive player watchers does not think is the optimal play, there's instantaneously gonna be drama. Did this person intentionally misplay so person X wins the game so they can split the prize money? That will be an instantaneous issue. And if it's not an instantaneous issue, imagine how that would look in Arena. Imagine. 90% of the time would be literally waiting until people press the resolve button. After they confirm that there are no instants that they want to cast at that turn. And God forbid, some genius decides to manually tap lands in that situation. It would be absolutely unwatchable. But yeah, I think this is it now. People are jaded when it comes to Magic. Like, I see it all the time. People think that something's a misplay just because they know the future of how it's gonna look after it looks bad. They're gonna say, it's a misplay. Magic the Gathering players on average have a lukewarm IQ at best, I would say. Most of them are delusional. It is what it is. Especially the ones who think that Magic is a competitive game. Again, there does not exist a single competitive game that is loved by many people. That has a situation where it's your turn, and you do nothing and you literally just skip it because you had nothing to do. There's not a single competitive successful game of that nature on the goddamn market. Anyway, this was Quizzer Sensen. Thanks for watching. Subscribe if you haven't already. Check out the channel, check out Discord, check out the Patreon, check out everything, and have a nice day. Bye-bye!